to start us off, we will start with how we ended last week's show. Everett, we're leaning on you heavy on this one, my friend. The
I'm
uSports
ready.
Men's Volleyball Championships. Trinity Western loses to Alberta in the finals.
I don't know.
Oh my
Let's say
goodness.
Alberta beat Trinity Western in the
Alberta,
final,
that's
right?
well
Like
said. Alberta beat
I think
Trinity
I
Western
think
in the
that is
final.
very much the storyline here, right? And everyone's acting like, "Whoa, how did Trinity lose? How did the Spartan lose?" That's a damn good Alberta team on the other side of the net. Jordan Cannon was absolutely phenomenal for them all throughout the Canada West playoffs and throughout this championship. They're a well-coached team. They've got great guys on all sides of the balls. I mean, Isaac Hislinga, like up there, like him and our boy Philip Lautner, they had two like very good seasons, but Hislinga, like a key member on a championship team. Max Elgert was looking better than ever in the setting role. I think picking up Landon Curry from Thompson Rivers from a few years ago, he's with Libero. Like he might be up there with Justin Louis, you know, in my books, is kind of the next guys up in Canadian volleyball. That was a damn good Alberta team that just came to play. Funnily enough, Rob, I think, you know, you brought it up last week about how Trinity doesn't play that traditional style and they don't have someone on the right side. They don't have a big banger out there. And I think it hurt them. It seemed like they were lacking options. They couldn't get the flow going. And it, let's say, I mean, I don't think they had their best game, but I think quite a bit of it was pressured by the way Alberta was playing and how strong they were. Plus, not to mention, let's like if you look at this picture, this graphic that we have up here, if you're watching the video, that guy in the hoodie right there, that's Braden Friesen coming out of Saskatchewan. That dude is a bona fide, like he could be playing for the national team one day, and he was injured throughout the entirety of the playoffs. So they had their backup setter Cam Kern playing on the left side, and head coach Brock Davidoff was calling him his volleyball player all throughout the Canada West playoffs because he can do everything. And the fact that they won a national championship with their backup setter and a first year on the left side, that's absolutely astonishing. And like full credit goes to the Alberta Golden Bears. I won't make that mistake again Terry. And yeah, they dominated. And not to mention, like you could argue that they had the tougher draw coming through, having to play Queens in the first round, having to play Calgary in the second round, right? So hats off to Alberta. They played fantastic. MVP goes to Ottawa boy Jordan Cannon. A good, like I would be remiss if I didn't, you know, give a big shout out to the Ottawa Mavericks Volleyball Club right now for producing another top talent in that one. And yeah, I mean, honestly, I was a little sad I wasn't there. Winnipeg is actually my hometown. I was there last year when they shut down nationals, like literally the night before. I was like at the championship, so it was a little sad I couldn't go, but I had a great time watching it on CBC all weekend.
I had a great time watching it from the States. It was electric. And the upset of Alberta, I mean, we have to call it an upset. That's just what this was. This was Trinity Western's championship to lose, and credit to Alberta, like Everett said, they came out and they took it to them. Set scores 25-22. Alberta took the first, then Trinity Western 25-12. A complete beatdown in the second, but I really think it turned in that third set, 26-24, and Trinity Western playing from behind pretty much the entire time, serving on 23-24. Brody Hofer rips an ace to tie it at 24 all. Then Hofer at the service line again. He had 6 aces, by the way. He was unbelievable. Either forced an overpass or put him out of system and they got a free ball. I can't remember which. And Jesse Elser hits the ball out of bounds to go down 25-24 and to take their best server off the service line. Then Cannon promptly rips an ace off Matthias Elser to win the set.
Cannon was so good.
He was so good. He was incredible. But that was the turning point for me. Was that third set where Trinity Western came back, they had their best server at the line on a roll, and they hit a ball out of bounds on a free ball opportunity that may have cost them the match. Dan, any takes on this from you? I'm looking at the stat sheet. I don't know if you've got any numbers in front of you, but being a numbers guy, what jumps out to you from at least the championship match?
So there's a couple of things that I want to get into first. I mean, yeah, like you guys, I'm very surprised by this result, especially like talking to people since the couple of days that this happened. I mean, you talk to your average volleyball fan, the guys they know, Jackson Howe, Brody Hofer, Derek Epp, guys who'll be on the Canadian national team, very likely playing pro in Europe in the near future. But Everett, I want to ask you, like Jordan Cannon, that's a name that probably not every volleyball fan knows, who obviously is leapt into the conversation recently. What can you tell us about him?
Well, I mean, Jordan Canham and just the Golden Bears in general, they don't have the flashiness on Instagram and TikTok and whatnot that, they don't have the social media presence that Trinity Western and someone like Brody Hofer or Jackson Howe does. But I mean, Jordan Canham is a guy who I mentioned before, Ottawa boy. He played for the junior national team, and he's been a guy for a while. Also, if you remember from some of my Canham videos, he's also the guy that crushed my camera in one of those matches. So you'll have to go through and find that one. But like, I mean, I think I said it last show too. I remember seeing Jordan Canham for the first time playing for Frank St. Denis on the Ottawa Mavericks at provincials as a 17U, and this dude was just crushing balls in the shoulders on him. I mean, he's a bit of a shorter stature. I think he's about 6'5", but he's got the big long wingspan on him, and he just crushes balls. He's a good all-around volleyball player. He's played a little bit of each as well, and he was a bit of a reckless weapon, especially earlier in his career, but man, he's really brought things together. I mean, 17 for 30 in this final here, 22 points overall, two aces over 7 errors. Like he just played great. I mean, I don't know, like I would love to say that he has a future on the right side in Canada, but let's be honest, we're getting real deep there with Shawan and Sclater and Xander Ketrazinski and, the list, like Matt Neves, who plays for UBC, and, his injury ultimately led to their downfall. Like there's so much talent there, but he's 100%, a guy who's going to be going to play pro one day and probably succeed somewhere.
17 for 30, 3 aces, 7 errors, and then 2 blocks total. That is a heck of a stat line, a championship match. Elsewhere around that tournament, Sherbrooke, big Cinderella story there, coming out of RCQ. Yeah, round of applause.
Yeah, big round of applause
all the way to third. That was a pleasant surprise, and then the unpleasant surprise of the OUA's performance. Ontario, all 3 teams losing in the first round. You two Canadian boys, any takes on those 2 provincial representations?
So I can't say as much as Everett, but like I was at Western when they had that great team for people who are very into the niche OUA volleyball knowledge, but with Garrett May and Phil James and Sean McKay and all those guys. We came close many times, but traditionally, I have to say, it always felt like as a player and fan in the OUA, like you're always up against like insurmountable odds. Like there's always that one team. There's always an Alberta or a Trinity Western that was always going to beat you in the end, even if we did make the finals a few times. But I mean, as good as Ontario is at volleyball, I think ultimately like the programs at West are just a little bit stronger.
Yeah, I don't disagree there. Ultimately, it was a terrible weekend, not just in the men's, but the women's as well. Everyone's losing in the first round. I mean, I think it's also tough as well for being an OUA school because they weren't deemed, OUA athletics in general weren't deemed elite when it came to lockdown. So they had to had to lock down, kind of heading into Christmas. And for a month after that, where they weren't they couldn't train, they couldn't compete, so they had to play catch up with everyone else, right? Even last year, where there was lockdowns where they couldn't train, whereas there was no leagues going on, but Trinity and Alberta and other Canada West schools, like they were still able to train all throughout the year. I think that you're seeing that a lot of the top tier, like Ontario was finding a lot of success in years past by keeping Ontario guys in Ontario. And I mean, we mentioned Isaac Heslingo. That's a guy out of the Aurora Storm, volleyball club just north of here in Toronto. And he's going out west and playing for the Golden Bears. I mean, I understand why. They're one of the, if not the most storied program in Canadian volleyball, right? So, a bit of a swing and miss for the OUA in general. But I mean, I was surprised. And let's be honest, it was tough. If you look at Toronto, for example, maybe that quarterfinal goes different if their team all Canadian setters, Zane Grossinger, doesn't, makes the trip and doesn't have COVID, right? Like, I think that's a huge kind of asterisk to put on, for the Toronto Varsity Blues. I think McMaster just came out flat against Calgary altogether. And I mean, Queens, not what they were kind of before the pandemic. The aforementioned Zane Grossinger had moved to Toronto, losing a couple players as well. And just, they don't stack up to Alberta. But yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow for the OUA, and I'm going to be interested to see how that affects nationals heading into next year.
So any more just larger takeaways before we move on from the subject from the Trinity Western perspective? We know that Ben Josephson is moving on to the Canadian men's national team. We know that a bunch of their players are moving on to the next level. Probably a lot of those guys will go play pro, but what in your guys' opinion, just from inside the Canadian borders, what's the legacy of this Trinity Western program given this less than perfect, like not the storybook ending they were looking for?
So for me, it honestly, it can kind of like really puts a damper on the whole Trinity Western legacy slash mythology. Like, given the reputation they had, and all the YouTube videos, everyone in Canada talking about how they would crush any D1 team that's come the past like 5 years at the US. I think now that they've come and put this performance up, granted, I think all of them will be good pros. I think like Brody Hofer, Jackson. I think all these guys will be on the national team, or at least quite successful careers on Europe. I think it's one of the better teams that we've seen. But like at the same time, you can't have this and then lose the Canadian national championships like that. To me, that completely ruins like the whole mythology of it, which is too bad because it was, it's exciting, especially for younger fans, guys still in high school, probably watching all these YouTube highlights and really getting into the team. But, they're still going to be fine. It's just kind of an unfortunate ending.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's still like, the reality is, as I said before, I think Trinity Western is just a bit more of a glitzy program in terms of their presence on social media. But like other than UBC doing it in 2017, and Laval doing it in 2013, the only two teams to win national championships of the past decade has been Alberta and Trinity Western. Like this is Bama against Clemson, right? Like it's not like we're necessarily talking about like even a McMaster or a Calgary coming in and upsetting them. We're talking about one of the premier programs. And I mean, like Terry Daniluk and Brock Daviduk and the program that they've built there at Alberta is renowned internationally. You talk to American guys like Al Skates and Marv Dunphy, and I'm sure they're going to tell you so much about how much they respect this program. So I definitely do think that it would have been a better story sending off Ben Josephson the way they did. You can argue that they got robbed twice in a row because they got robbed in 2020 with the shutdown of pandemic and Eric Lepke's last year. But hey, I still think I still think there's I don't think it's that big of a deal and moving forward. But I mean, I think it's going to be interesting because this is the end of the Ben Josephson era, arguably one of the most dominant eras in Canadian uSports volleyball history. And now it's going to be up to Adam Schreimer and Ben Ball, two former setters of the program, to kind of take the reins and move forward. And I mean, hey, with the young talent that Alberta has and teams like UBC and stuff like that, no shot to those two guys. But I think Ben Josephson just means so much to that program and brings so much that I think we're definitely going to see a bit of a leveling out of the playing field here. And I mean, as I said, they lose some guys. I think Alberta loses some guys too, but I think they're going to good position to kind of go on another run like they have in the past.
I'm a little more with Dan than I am with you, Everett. I think that Trinity Western losing this championship match is hurts their legacy significantly, especially given all the hype and the media and just the star power and their play style and just everything about it. Not being able to get it done on this stage is a painful way to end an era, and it sucks. But that's what sports is sometimes. And I want to throw out some numbers to you guys before we move on. So Brody Hofer, 16 for 28, attacking, unbelievable. 6 aces, only 2 errors, unbelievable. Jordan Schnitzer, 20 attempts, second on the team in attempts from the middle. And I know he hits left side in that one rotation, but 14 for 20 with 2 errors. He was tremendous. Jackson Howe, 8 for 10. Derek Epp, 4 for 4 in like setter dumps and attacking occasionally. How do you lose a match with those numbers? Here's how. Jesse Elser, 5 for 15, 5 errors, 0% efficiency. Matthias Elser, 2 for 10, 5 errors, negative 300 efficiency, and just some real head-scratching, confusing moments. Colton Lowen as well, like trying to send over a short bump send over on the second contact late in the fourth and missing it into the top tape. Like that's a choke. There's no other way to say it. That there were some moments when Trinity Western choked in this match, and that was the difference because outside of a couple key moments and a couple key players on the floor, their numbers were outstanding. But Alberta was the more clutch, solid, and well-rounded team throughout, and they deserve to win, in my opinion.
And when are we going to get like the uSports versus NCAA winners face
off?
Oh,
dude, we talked about it last week. It would be so sick, but like now I don't know if I even want to see. I don't know if I care about seeing Alberta play against like whoever ends up winning. Yeah. Well, NCAA this year is wide open as it's ever been, and I don't think there's any one team that's really all that good. But it would have been more fun had it been Trinity Western for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, like, hey, let's not forget that Alberta was also, dummying the American teams back in 2019 at the Can-Am Holiday Classic. So
Everett, you've got to get off your high horse about this Can-Am tournament, dude. It's
but like that. I'm just saying that,
season,
like,
and we're not, and it's your
no,
volleyball,
but
not ours.
That's not what I'm saying at all. It's just more so that, like, you wouldn't want to see Alberta play against NCAA teams. I mean,
you might in the month of May versus the month of December. I think that's a big difference, and I hope.
No, absolutely. I'm not even talking about that, but I'm just saying that, like, they can be just as dominant as Trinity Western.
Yeah, but Rob, those games are on YouTube, so that's really all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
I loved that tournament. Trust me, I was all about that tournament. Yeah, but if you think that that's really the true representation of the best of the NCAA, you don't know what you're watching.
Oh no, and so, I fully admit that. But yeah,
moving on real quick before we move off of uSports, Trinity Western did do one very good thing this weekend. That's win a national championship on the women's side. I don't really know anything about this, and like we talked about on last week's show, literally the only sport that uSports and the NCAA do on the same competitive level is men's volleyball. Women's, not even close. We have.
I mean, hey, let's give some respect to the. I mean, hey, you want to know the last player?
I'm not going to do that.
Like,
I'm not going to do that.
Kira Van Ryk came out of uSports, right? So cool. I think that we've got some stuff there. I'm not going to say that they play at par, but I still think that they deserve respect.
A uSports women's team would never ever make the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament. Never. Probably not even the round of 30.
I think 7 Kira Van Ryks would probably make it.
I mean, you got to get someone to dish the ball. But hey, Bree King, former Trinity Western Spartan as well. Hillary Howe, she was a Trinity Western Spartan as well. I'm just saying that, we like to spread our talent.
If there's one team that could do it, though, it's probably Trinity Western most years.
And I like the recent ascendancy of the Canadian women's volleyball program. I love they're playing VNL. But you guys got to remember there are levels to this, okay? You do not compete with the USA in college women's volleyball, or at least recently in international women's volleyball. Different levels, but congratulations.
Hey, Rob, Carleton men's basketball.
Oh, there we go.
we could probably win one match, maybe.
Yeah, we could win a first round match.
Yeah,
I mean, so. Who we wouldn't lose to is St. Peter's.
Everett, I swear.
St. Peter's.
I'm cutting this show.
Rob's like, why on earth did I ever invite 2 Canadians to this show? This is the worst mistake of my entire life.
I hate you both so much.
All right, back on topic. Let's go.